And if you have not seen this going around on Twitter, yes, Ilhan Omar has been approached by protesters at a recent meeting that she had with her constituents. And I actually clipped this so I can show the full thing, because the clip on Twitter doesn't show the full discussion. So I clipped this from the Facebook watch and uploaded it to YouTube, but didn't publish it. So this won't be published because it's not my work, but I do want you to see this discussion that happened here. So progressives are, they're being approached by different protesters saying like, look, you need to explain why you voted to give Ukraine billions and billions of dollars. And they don't like that. So we've seen this happen to Jamal Bowman, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Elizabeth Warren, and now Ilhan Omar. So take a look at this, because this did not go well for Ilhan Omar at all. Let's get into it.
My name is Nick. I also share a similar concern to him about your continued voting for the military-industrial complex every single year that you've been in office. It's been increasing every single year that you've been in office. You vote for it every single time. You sent $80 billion to Ukraine, and you don't got money for my college. You don't got money for universal health care. Everybody here is broke, and you keep voting for these wars. Every single time you've been locked in step, voting for all of the wars that bomb poor men, women, and children all across the world with our...
I just want to pause it here for a second, because there's something he said here that I want people to really like focus on. He said, everybody here is broke. Everybody in that room. Ilhan Omar is not. So I love the fact that he brought it back to the economic struggle that people are having in this country. Because see, she's not one of them. Yeah, that's her district, but she's not one of them. Financially, she's fine. So he points out, he makes some comparisons here. You are voting to send billions and billions of money to Ukraine, but what about our education? Where's the vote to make public universities free? Where's the vote to cancel all student loan debt, not just the 10 to 20K? And he mentioned universal health care. Where is the money and the vote for that? And that's huge, because Ilhan Omar ran on Medicare for all. So I love the fact that he brought that up. You should call them out on this. And this is what I will say with this particular protester. He pointed to specific examples. He didn't just get up and say, yeah, why you send this money to Ukraine? He pointed to specific examples that she ran on that were a part of her platform that she has not fulfilled. And not just her alone, but the progressives in Congress. So let's go on.
Our imperialism, and what are we supposed to do? You guys keep voting for all this stuff. We want healthcare, we want good infrastructure, we want to stop all these wars, and you keep voting for all of it. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, we keep voting, but nothing changes. What?
We keep voting and nothing changes. Is he wrong? Because my life hasn't improved by voting. It really, just going to be honest, my economic needs have not improved by voting or from voting. It really hasn't. So what are they supposed to do?
It's ridiculous.
I will say,
we're so close to getting into de-escalation.
Okay, you asked your question, let me answer it for you now. Is that okay?
All right.
So I've never voted for the NDAA, which is what funds the Pentagon budget. So that question is probably for another member of Congress that voted.
No, Ilhan. So you see what she's doing here, right? She's trying to flip it and direct it to the Pentagon because they create the military budget. You voted to send the money, didn't you? Every single one of them, all of the progressives, all of them, they voted to send the money. So she's going to try to toss it back to, oh, the military industrial complex, the budget. I didn't vote for the budget. It doesn't matter if you didn't vote for the budget. You voted to send the money. And I don't remember you standing up to force the vote for Medicare for all. I know that. And you've been there long enough now. Long enough. You didn't join the squad yesterday. You've been there for years. So this is what they do. A lot of times with politicians, they like to try to pass, let me deflect. And, it's the military budget. I didn't have anything to do with the budget. Doesn't matter. You had everything to do with the money going out the door. Let's go on.
For that piece of legislation, I made a promise to my constituents that would be a bill that I would never cast a single yes vote on, and I have not done that in my time.
So we're going to talk about the promises that you made to your constituents. You also promised to your constituents that you would fight for Medicare for all, right? You also promised to your constituents that you would push back against the corporate Democrats in Congress. Have you been doing that? No. You and Nancy Pelosi are friends. You guys are buddies. She endorsed you. So the promises that you made to your constituents, you don't have a good track record on that. So it may not be good to start bringing up promises right now.
I'm in Congress, and I will not do that in the time I serve this district.
We're asking you to actually fight for
Here,
it.
I answered your question.
Okay.
No, we're asking you to stand up
We're asking you to fight for us.
Yeah, you're getting us in
Not disagree with
Ask
us.
your question.
You
I
gotta
will
fight,
start
you
to
can
answer.
fight for us.
If you have another question, I will circle back. Let me.
So that gentleman said, we're asking you to fight for us. And I want to remind you guys, Ilhan Omar barely won her primary this time. It was close.
Take another question from someone who did it. But if you're here for another reason, it is quite fine too.
Thank you.
What other reason?
Since we're
How is that another reason? If you're here for another reason, that's quite fine too. That's what she said, right? Those are your constituents, Ilhan. They have every right to question you about the way that you have voted. And if you didn't want that to happen, then you shouldn't be a politician. See, I feel like this. At least Ro Khanna admits to it. At least he doesn't run and hide when people ask these questions. He stands by what he did. The progressives in Congress, they want to make votes, but then they want to go run and hide when people question them about it. They don't want to stand by it. If you voted that way, you should be able to stand up and say, yes, I voted for it, and here is the reason why. Don't go run and duck and hide now. Votes are public. It's not like we wouldn't have known.
talking about foreign affairs. And Congress is a very large body with 435 different perspectives. And whether or not people agree with you, your perspective is very unique within Congress, with your background, everything that you bring. And we have heard if the House flips from Representative McCarthy, that he's talking about removing you from the Foreign Relations Committee, which would be a disaster because we need your voice there.
So this guy goes on to say it would be a disaster if she's removed from the Foreign Relations Committee. That's if Kevin McCarthy wins back the House, right? He said it would be a disaster because we need your voice. You need her voice to do what, though? Because let me ask you guys a question. If you speak out against something, right? Let's say you talk a good game You say what you support, you say what you're against. But when it comes time for you to vote, you vote in a different way. Does your voice really matter then? If I tell you that I'm going to pay for your first year of tuition, or I believe in paying for your first year of tuition, but when it comes time for me to pay, I run and hide. Is that okay? No, it's not okay. And I don't know if that was the best analogy, but I try. JB's better at this than me. But your voice doesn't matter if you're saying one thing, but you're voting differently. Because look, we've heard a lot of voices, right? There's a lot of voices in Congress. We've heard AOC's voice. We've heard Nancy Pelosi's voice. We've heard all of these politicians' voices. The problem is their actions don't match what they say. And I don't know about you, but my dad always told me, pay attention to people's actions, not so much what they say, because that means more and that matters more. So just because Ilhan Omar may be have a different perspective or she's a little bit different, he thinks that's why she needs to be there. But what is the point of her being there if she's voting the same way that a corporate Democrat from her district would vote? You see the problem? What is the point? And that goes for all of them. What is the point of Jamal Bowman being in Congress if he's voting the same way that Elliot Engel would vote? There's no difference.
Again, whether or not people agree with you or not, your voice is unique and very important there. If the House does split, is there anything that you can do to stay on the Foreign Relations Committee?
Notice not once does he mention why she's important. He goes, you're very important there. And that leads me to think he feels that she's important there because of how she looks. She's important there because she's a woman of color. She's important there because she's Muslim. That's why she's important there. Because not once does he mention anything that she's done.
That's a scary thing to think about. I love being on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And I love having the ability to bring my perspective and change the conversation, at least shape the conversation that we're having in that committee. I will fight to stay on, but right now we are fighting to not lose the majority, and so that is a lot of labor.
So she said, right now we're fighting to not lose the majority. Well, you wouldn't have to worry about that if you did what you said you were going to do. Democrats wouldn't have to worry about that if they actually did what they promised to do. That's why they're at risk of losing the House. And you don't believe me? Look at the poll numbers. It's close. It's closer than people may realize. Look at Nevada. Look at Arizona. There was one more I looked at earlier. I forget. But look at the poll numbers. That is a direct result of the Democratic Party not fulfilling the economic promises that they made to the American people. And they really believed that they could just run on Roe v. Wade and that would help them maintain those seats. And I think they're starting to see differently.
Both parties are for war, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, what are we losing by voting?
You're all
Yep.
for war. Both of you.
Well, if there are
You heard what he said? He said both parties are for war. So what difference does it make? And she knows that's true. This is an uncomfortable moment for her.
independent candidates,
You know, if you
We
wanna
thought you
change
were
the-
gonna
if
do
you
it.
wanna
Oh,
change-
oh, do it. Do it. Do you guys hear that? Let's hear it again. Because this is her letting you know, by the way, I really wonder what her fellow Democrat peers in Congress, how they would feel, excuse me, hiccup, how they would feel about that statement that she just made about the independent candidates. So here you have Ilhan Omar, the Democrat, telling you to vote for the independents. You guys heard that? Let's hear it
Both
again.
parties are for war, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, what are we losing by voting?
You're all vote, you're all for war. Both of you.
Well, if there are independent candidates, you can vote for them.
Boom. All right, everybody. Justice Democrats, did you hear that? Did you hear one of your own just told them to vote for the independent candidates? And by the way, it takes a lot of guts and a lot of work to be an independent candidate. You don't have the resources for those that are running in the two-party system. You just don't have the resources that you need, right? It takes strength. She's not going to run as an independent candidate. She was never going to. And notice she did not refute his statement when he said both parties are for war, though. She didn't push back and say, no, that's not true. She didn't try to explain like why she voted the way that she did at all. At all. So you heard it, guys. There's Ilhan Omar letting you know you got independent candidates, vote for them.
You know, if you
We
wanna
thought you
change
were
the-
gonna do
If
it.
you wanna change the
I already
conversation.
told you my voting record that you continue to
You are
say
supposed to be a
doesn't-
progressive.
doesn't-
Yeah, you're supposed to be standing against the establishment.
Anti-war.
I am
80
anti-war.
billion to Ukraine is
I
not
am
anti-war.
We are helping Ukraine defend themselves. It is
Ukraine
defense.
is killing its own
We
citizens.
are helping people survive
Donbass.
war. We are helping little children like me
You're helping
that
start
have been held.
Perpetuating
So
the
unless
issue.
Did she really use the children trope? I think she did. She just used the children trope, guys. Listen.
Ukraine defend themselves, it is
Ukraine
defense.
is killing its own
We are
citizens.
helping people survive
Donbass.
war. We are helping little children like me
You're helping
that
We're helping little children. Little children are being killed too. She used him. They always go to like the women and the children. So you're just going to pretend that innocent people are not being killed? You're just going to pretend that there's no casualties?
have been held.
Perpetuating
So
the
unless,
You're
listen,
pressing the big red button.
listen, unless you have not been paying attention to what is happening, there are millions of Ukrainians that have been displaced. There are piles of bodies that are being found in mass graves.
What about
There
you?
are little children
Yeah.
whose lives are being lost.
By
You can
Zelensky.
sit here,
Yeah,
you
by
can
Zelensky
sit here
and
and
Donbass.
talk, but unless you are someone like me that has been that child, you do not get to tell me what my votes mean and how I get to vote in supporting people.
So you were that child because she's originally from Somalia, right? What is the United States government doing to people in Somalia? Her home country. Why doesn't she have that same rage and passion about the United States government dropping drones on people in Somalia, her own country? Where's that same fire? Where's that same outrage? See, she's not gonna have it. And yes, I know she wrote a letter to Joe Biden last year. I went over all of that. But she's not gonna have it. You know why? Because Joe Biden did that. And he's a Democrat. And she has to back her party. This is the problem with the political parties. Your own country. Rashida Tlaib, I'll give her this. Rashida Tlaib has spoken out publicly multiple times about what is happening to the Palestinian people. Where are you, Ilhan, on what the United States government is doing to the people in your own country? What's happening to those little children, Ilhan? Or are you only going to talk about the Ukrainian ones?
Yes.
It gets
The United
worse.
States that started this war. All Putin said was the same thing.
There is no one that takes you seriously when you say the U.S. started this war. You need to please. You need to stop. I don't know what websites you're reading, but you literally are not paying attention, and it's sad. It is sad and dangerous for you to say a war that has been waged by Russia was started by the U.S.
By NATO.
By the way, this guy here, you know, this guy here just needs to have a seat because he's just like, wait, but can I get my question in, man? Can I get my question in?
It's sad.
NATO
It is
started the war.
sad. It is sad.
NATO
It
started
is
it.
sad. And I hope that you find the help
President John
that you need.
Kennedy said we
Yes.
Russia shouldn't
let's go.
put nuclear
Let's go.
weapons
All
in
right.
Cuba.
Get up.
Why are we putting
Get up.
nuclear weapons in
Is this
Ukraine?
yours?
It doesn't make any sense.
There are no
That's why the
there
war
are
started.
no nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Stop
Yeah.
saying ridiculous
What about the
things.
Ukrainians?
Why don't you stand up against NATO, though? Why don't you push back? Why don't you stand up and push back against NATO? That's the question to Ilhan.
That is a very ridiculous thing for you to say. Ukraine disarmed itself. There are no nuclear weapons in Ukraine. My God.
Hi.
Yes.
First of all, it's good to meet you. Jason's amazing.
He's still out there.
Hold on one second.
What I wanted to ask you is the midterms are coming up in a few weeks. I'm just wondering if there's anything, because like the Democrats are in major trouble to lose both chambers. People.
Joe Biden said we are headed towards Armageddon. We are at risk of a nuclear war. And this guy, after that whole fiasco, this guy stands up and goes, I'm wondering about the midterms. You see, this happened last night too, during the Ro Khanna interview. I'm wondering about the midterms after someone is just talking about a nuclear war. This is where a lot of Americans, this is where their minds are at. They're focused on a damn election instead of focusing on the fact that you may not even be here. Bye-bye. Now, people, they're calling her out. Like it's because, you know, Ilhan has been a hypocrite. Now, here's Danny Haifong. So Danny Haifong said Ilhan Omar is spreading Russiagate disinformation to avoid answering legitimate questions, like why she would sign off on arming Ukraine when this has brought the world closer to nuclear war. When progressives sound like neocons, they're probably just neocons. And this is in response to this message that she said here. She was retweeting Jose, and she said, I'm sorry, you all aren't anti-war protesters. You are dangerous propagandists who are literally making a mockery of the anti-war movement. I have never had the pleasure of responding to Russia, ridiculous internet disinformation in person before. Thank you for the opportunity. Peace. And she still didn't answer the question. And she goes on here. I'm amazed at the nerve that some people have to not be upset with the country literally waging the war, but at the country defending itself and those helping them to do that. And I just want to be clear. I've been very vocal about where I stand on this issue. I said all three were in the wrong: Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. I was even told by one of these people tonight, it's America that started the Russia war. Seriously, what the fuck? It wouldn't have gone that far, Ilhan. It wouldn't have gone that far if you would have just answered the question as to why you voted the way that you did. Now, even Aaron Monte's calling her out. Like I said, oh boy. Speaking of making a mockery of the anti-war movement, here's Ilhan Omar in March, making a statement that sounds a lot like the protesters who she now accuses of spreading Russian ridiculous internet disinformation. So here's a tweet that she had in March. So this was March 8th. Hey, that's my birthday. March 8th, 2022 this year. This is from Ilhan Omar. The consequences of flooding Ukraine with billions of dollars in U.S. weapons, likely not limited to just military-specific equipment, but also including small arms plus ammo, are unpredictable and likely disastrous. Especially when they are given to paramilitary groups without accountability. So what changed? Did you guys change? I didn't change. Seemed like to me, she flip-flopped. So I don't know, again, if she even remembers this tweet, but it happened. It happened, Ilhan. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Now, the way that she responded back to him, was there a better way that she could have responded? I want to show you an example, because here's the thing you have to understand. If someone's yelling at you, again, you're a political official, someone's yelling at you, you cannot control the way that someone is talking to you. You can't control that. But you can control the way that you respond to it. So I'm going to show you a different example. Now, this is Ed Markey, and I'm going to show you the way that he responded to the same criticism about donating billions to Ukraine. Listen to his response.
Thank you, Senator. Oh,
Can I say one word?
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I got in a little trouble.
Senator Markey, your policy in the Senate has escalated the war in Ukraine to we're on the brink of nuclear annihilation. Are you going to start doing your job to work towards peace, or are you going to continue to play with people's lives? What's your policy in Ukraine, Senator? Is it to fight to the last Ukrainian?
Sir, the questions are over, sir.
What's your policy,
Sir,
Senator? Answer the question.
Notice this gentleman tries to come in to stop it. They don't want them to answer that question.
Is it just to fight to the last Ukrainian? How many people have to die?
Can you go? If you could sit down, I'll give you an answer. Okay, thank you. So, I went to Ukraine about 6 weeks after the war started. I went right to the Polish border, where all of the refugees were coming. And it's quite impressive what the Polish people are doing, the Hungarian people, because they all lived under Soviet control for generations. And the United States has provided help to the Ukrainian people, which we should. We have to give them an opportunity to protect themselves against something which would be an historic disgrace if Putin was allowed to just take over a free and democratic country. So ultimately, there is no end to a war which is not negotiated. And ultimately, we have to move towards a negotiated settlement. But we have to make sure that we give the Ukrainian people the tools they need, have the strongest possible bargaining position in that negotiation.
Okay. Now, I don't agree with what he said, but you notice the difference in the way that he responded and the way that she responded. And by the way, she responded crazy like that, and she never answered the question. At least he answered the question.